What's going on, bibliophiles? Welcome back to Poetry and Prejudice. Today we are going to be reading one of my favorite poems by one of my favorite authors. We're going to be reading Love After Love by Derek Walcott, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1992. With that said, let's go ahead and read the poem all the way through. Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. Now let's analyze this poem line by line. The speaker begins, "The time will come," which is to say that whatever the time is for, whatever it is that the speaker has in mind, that time is not now. The time is not the present moment. But at that moment, you will, with elation, with extreme joy, greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." So here we have a split that continues throughout the rest of the poem. We have the idea of a person who has become so severely estranged or alienated from themselves that they imagine themselves almost being two people in one. And so we have this stranger coming back home to the true or authentic self. And this is captured here quite literally in the sense that the stranger is coming back home. Arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome. So you'll smile at seeing yourself again, that person that you have estranged in order to maintain, as we'll get into shortly, the relationship that you have been in. And not only that, you'll be invited back home, but you'll also be invited in and say, "Sit here, eat." You'll be invited to a meal. And this is, of course, a somewhat symbolic gesture because one of the primary ways that human beings bond with one another is through eating and sharing food and having conversation over food. And so you can see how these two different parts of the self are coming home and starting to coalesce. The speaker continues, "You will love again the stranger who was yourself," which is to say, take into consideration the first stanza, "The time will come when you will love again the stranger who was yourself." This line is the most explicit exemplification of the split that we were just discussing. Here, the person, the other half that they've had to create in order to maintain or cope with the relationship that they are in or were in, is literally referred to as a stranger. But that person who is a stranger, you'll love them again. But, once again, the time is not now. But that person, that stranger, that facade that you've had to create, that person all along was yourself. And now they're going to coalesce into one. The speaker continues, "Give wine, give bread." This is an instance of a literary device called metonymy, where in essence what you do is you refer to something by referring to its parts. Wine, give bread. This seems to me to be a reference to the Eucharist. But the speaker here doesn't say, "Go do the Eucharist." They just refer to parts of the Eucharist, the giving wine and the giving bread, which is supposed to represent both the body and blood of Jesus Christ. But it's a gesture or a ceremony that is a time of renewal. If I understand the ceremony correctly, it's supposed to renew your relationship and commitment to Jesus Christ. But in this case, what is being renewed is the commitment to being your true self, to eliminating this stranger or this facade, or at least encompassing it once again. The speaker continues, "Give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life. Here the speaker is commanding, essentially, that you take away the love that you have given to another person and give back your heart, give back your love and affection to yourself. Learn, once again, to love who you are. This stranger, in essence, who you've had to become in order to stay in the relationship that you are in. The person who has loved you all your life, because nobody is there for you more than you are for yourself. The person who you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Nobody knows you better than you know you. The speaker continues, take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Here the speaker is commanding the person that they are speaking to get rid of the mementos of the person that they were in love with, the love letters, the photographs, the desperate notes. In other words, those things that would remind them of the person that they, I was going to say were, but perhaps still are, in love with. Get rid of those things because it's only going to harm your capacity to heal, for you to come home to yourself, that stranger to come back to your authentic self. Peel your own image from the mirror. So this is a very fascinating image. You have the idea of this person standing before a mirror and they're kind of peeling off almost like a layer of skin, their own image. But the idea here is that that layer is almost like a mask, a persona that they have had to create in order to stay in the relationship that they were in. That is not you truly. Now we're going to get rid of that layer and you're going to see yourself as you truly are once again. And then the speaker ends here, and one of the most beautiful lines in poetry I have ever read. Sit, feast on your life. In other words, sit down, feast on your life. Sit down and eat. But in this case, we're not talking merely about eating food. Of course, the speaker says feast on your life. That's a very interesting choice of words. Feast, which means to eat heartily, to relish the food that you are eating. But here he's saying relish your life. In other words, if I interpret this correctly, go back to enjoying those things that made you who you truly are. Those hobbies, those passions, those things that fascinate you, those things that you put away so that you could continue to be in the relationship that you were in. Go back to those things that made you truly who you are and relish in them. What does this poem say thematically? In my opinion, it speaks to a universal human experience. Everyone, or nearly everyone, at some point in their lives will fall in love with someone so deeply who is the wrong person for them. And what happens or tends to happen in these situations is that one or other of the partners will start to become someone who they are not in order to sustain the relationship. They become estranged or alienated from themselves. They might even come to think of themselves as being a stranger. We start to ignore ourselves, and almost to the extent that we love or give ourselves to another person, we stop to give ourselves to ourselves. We stop loving ourselves. We stop doing those things that are most truly fulfilling to us, that we are passionate about. I know that this has been the case for me in multiple relationships that I've been in, where I've given a little bit too much of myself. I stopped doing those things that I was passionate about. Maybe it meant reading or writing a bit less. I know in one instance, there was a relationship that I had when I was in college, and I almost dropped out because the woman that I was with was saying that I wasn't spending enough time with her. And so I moved from being a full-time student down to a part-time student. And we ended up breaking up anyway. So I probably should have done what was most fulfilling to me, which is continue to pursue my education and actually graduate anyways. But that's the kind of thing that I think this poem is speaking to. Those times where we've fallen in love with somebody who we perhaps shouldn't have, gave too much of ourselves, and as a consequence, lost ourselves. I'll go ahead and leave it there. Tell me what you guys think about my analysis down in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree, and what you think about Love After Love by Derek Walcott. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this content, hit that like button, smash subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can be informed when I drop more videos on poetry and prejudice. Until next time, guys.